Welcome back to 1990s America, everybody. This is my 1995 Buick Roadmaster. And no, it is not parked out in front of a golf club or a picnic club. It's here and it's in my fleet. Some might be wondering why somebody like me would choose to purchase a large American V8 powered land yacht. And sometimes I lie awake at night thinking the same thing. I have no clue what got into me to buy this car, but it's probably my friend Michael. He's kind of a bad influence. He had a Buick Riviera, Oldsmobile 98, and next week you're gonna see his latest purchase, a Chrysler Fifth Avenue. So you can definitely see where this financial mistake came from, but is it really a financial mistake? I mean, I spent well under $1,000 for this car, less money than I actually have paid for any of my other cars, even my broken Land Rover that I am staring at and regretting right now. It runs and it drives and it does burnouts. Could this be the best purchase that I've ever made on four wheels? Maybe we shouldn't go too far because there are a lot of individual little issues that this car has, some of which are very obvious, you can see right now, some of which aren't, that they're sort of behind the scenes, so we have to drive it to experience some of the issues. But right now, I'll talk you through basic overview of my Buick Roadmaster. A previous owner who I have actually gotten back into contact with repaired a rust hole back here with, instead of the proper way of welding metal and then just painting and smoothing it out, he decided, nah, I'll just throw some license plates and some Bondo in. Sort of goes to show what sort of budget this car has been run on. That's pretty ridiculous. I mentioned this in my previous video on this car, but since then, again, I have gotten in contact with the guy who did this repair, and it was a rust hole back here that was a problem. Not sure what I'm gonna be able to do about that. It's ugly and it's distinctive. On the other side, I've got multiple pieces of plastic trim coming off. Not a big deal, but it's a problem. Also, there is quite clearly some Bondo work done back here, as there's a lot of cracking in the paint. So have to run a Carfax on this car at some point to find out what exactly happened back here. But the cool part is that this limited badge right here lights up at night. Not on this side because it's broken. On the other side, it actually does light up at night when you put the headlights on, which is absolutely rad, just amazing. Also, equally amazing, I love the spec and the color that this car is in. Not only is it gold beige on the outside and beige tan on the interior, it's got pinstriping down the side in two different shades of brown, which, given the whole ethos of a big grandpa car like this, brown is an absolute necessity. The more brown, the better. And it's got pinstriping in two different shades of brown. How grandpa car is that? I think one of the more major issues with this car that isn't a hard fix, obviously, but is a bit expensive to rectify, are these tires. All four tires on this car are not only not name brand, they're not recognizable to me, which means they're cheap. Not only are they not name brand, they're also all four different date codes. Which again further slams home the point that this car was not exactly run on a well-funded budget. I am a bit stressed about driving this car too far or too fast with old tires that are cheap and all different date codes. If I keep this car for very long, I definitely need to fix this problem, but at least the tires are glorious white wall tires, which matches the grandpa car vibe of this car. Again, I love the way this car was spec'd out. And another thing is that it wouldn't be a Topher Parker Cars car if it didn't have some sort of mismatched panel on it. And the Buick Roadmaster is no exception. What I was told from the previous owner is that his wife or somebody was driving this and hit a dump truck. So that's fun. Maybe not hard enough to cause any damage anywhere else, or maybe they were able to find a bumper and a hood in the junkyard that matched. This hood does have a little bit of dent and damage on it. Not that big of a deal. But this burgundy panel really does spoil the luxurious, glory, freedom-filled beige gold of the rest of the car. So at some point, this would need to go. If somebody knows somebody in the Utah area that has a gold Roadmaster panel just laying around with brown pinstriping. Comment sections down below or hit me up in my DMs on Instagram because I don't like this look. So cosmetically, on the whole, this car isn't exactly the best. Definitely could use some money spent on it for sure. Clips in some places, paint in other places, and a new windshield right here would get this car looking a lot better than it does right now. But there are a number of small mechanical issues too. Namely, there's something going on up there with the cooling system. Runs quite hot when it's parked, not moving on a hot day like what we have every day right now. And after driving it for an extended period of time, there is a hissing noise coming from the radiator. So that's something that needs to be done. Also, like I mentioned, the front suspension isn't exactly good. It's floaty and not predictable in the steering, which is what you'd expect from a car like this, but it's a little bit too floaty and a little bit too knocky. So that's something that we need to look at. This is by far the largest vehicle I have ever owned, and driving this day to day, back to back with my BMW 3 Series that you see in the background is kind of tricky to get used to sometimes. I did hit that fence over there once already because I forgot how absolutely gargantuan this car is. It's too big to fit in a standard American size parking space. You park this next to minivans and SUVs of the modern day, and it's longer. And I'm not just saying by a minuscule amount, I'm saying feet amount of longer. It's actually, I think, 2 or 3 feet longer than a full-size Volvo XC90. Not even making that up. Yet the rear seat space is not much better than my 3 Series over there. It's an absolutely terrible use of space, at least in the sedan. There was a Roadmaster wagon that was also offered that used the space a little bit better than the sedan did. The sedan is basically an old school American body on frame sedan in the traditional format. It's got a big V8 under the hood, rear wheel drive, guzzles gas like a truly American vehicle should, and has an absolutely gargantuan trunk that you can use for criminal activities, I'm sure. Sure, at some point, bodies have been put in the back of a Buick Roadmaster or something of the like. The Buick Roadmaster is on the General Motors B body platform, which underpinned an insane amount of cars, but most notably the Chevrolet Caprice, which was a cop car and a taxi back in the day. And when you have basically the exact same car as what was used as a taxi or police patrol vehicles back in the day, you know it's built to be reliable, you know it's built to last, and you know it's built for speed and to be beat on. Maybe not for speed. Maybe I'm selling it a bit too much, but underneath the hood here is a sports car engine. Let's have a look. That's not a good sign. Hood didn't do anything. There we go. Pop the hood of a Buick Roadmaster from 1994 to 1996, and you will find a surprise. This V8 is dubbed the LT1, which is basically the exact same unit that was in the 1991 to 1996 Chevrolet Corvette. In this car, there were a couple changes. I think the biggest and most notable of which was different cylinder heads. So that resulted in a slightly lower power and torque output, but still quite a bit more than what you'd expect for an old grandpa car beige Buick. This develops 260 horsepower and 330 pound-feet of torque. And if you're wondering what fuel mileage I've been getting with this car, don't ask. So let's take it out on the road and experience what this car is like to drive. Okay. Let's take this big American beast for a drive. First thing that we need to note, one finger, ready? Finger that way. Oh, lovely. The steering is exactly what you would expect for a car like this. Way over boosted and insanely vague. And if you start to turn the wheel back and forth, you start rolling back and forth and you feel like you're a bobblehead all of a sudden. It's not a handler, and nobody expected it to be a handler in any definition of the word. Here we go. Oh, Oh, when you go out of a turn, you got plenty of power and American V8 torque. Now, one complaint that I have with the way this car drives is the ride quality is not nearly as good as I would have expected, given the fact that it's a big old American land yacht that handles so poorly it makes my Land Rover look like a Ferrari. Every single bump you go over and every undulation is muffled straight into the cabin, and you're honestly lucky to have these ridiculously soft pillow top velour seats that you're sitting on. But even then, these seats aren't as comfortable as the seats that I had in my 2001 Volvo S80 that I sold at the end of last year. That car's seats were, unlike anything else, the best car seats I've ever sat in. These, you expect them to feel like lazy boy couches, and they're definitely more soft and pillowy and comfortable than any modern car pretty much, but it's not as comfortable as you'd want or expect, if I'm totally honest. Looking in front of me, I've got a big, lit up in green, because it's getting dark, I've planned this badly. Lit up in green, I've got a single central speedometer, and on the left, temperature gauge, on the right, fuel gauge. That's all you need, because when you drive a car like this, you are most likely 95, and you don't even know what tachometers are. RPMs? Is that what my pacemaker corrects? Also, there is a little warning light in the gauge cluster for the anti-lock braking system, and I have tested it, and it doesn't work. The wheels lock up as soon as you panic brake. I'm not going to do that right now because that would be stupid. I'm out on a public road, but just take my word for it. The ABS definitely doesn't work, but I can live with that. It's only 5% of the time that that's going to be a problem, but when that's a problem, it's life or death, so might want to fix that at some point. Also, I do have a radio now, but it's yeah, sort of loose. But the best part of this car, the best part, is the horn. Oh yeah! Nothing today has a horn quite like that, except for some trains. It's ridiculous. When I take out this car, I always look forward to the Utah drivers pulling out in front of me and cutting me off, because a horn like that is not going to be forgotten. The dude's going to drive home, he's going to be in bed with his wife's going to say, "What's wrong, honey? Why can't you put in the effort right now?" He's going to say, "I'm fine," but then he's going to be thinking back to when he pulled out in front of that Roadmaster and experienced the wrath of his mighty horn. It's absolutely great. But another thing that's great is that driving along, this car looks like a grandpa car from the Malaise era with 105 horsepower from a 7.8 liter V8 or whatever. You expect it to be completely dog slow and have absolutely nothing in it. Ooh, the horn button's really sensitive, it scared me. You expect this car, given its looks and its ethos, to be dog slow, but this thing has so much torque, it will light up the rear tires, no problem at all. And everybody back there must be completely blown away by the fact that this grandpa car, this gold aircraft carrier with a Buick hood ornament, just moved away at such a hasty pace. This isn't the quickest, most powerful car that I've had. Again, that honor goes to my Volvo S80, but it's got quite a lot more to offer than what you'd expect. This old Buick definitely has a few tricks up its sleeve. And I'm looking down at the odometer right there, 225,000 miles. Doesn't really feel like it from where I'm driving, except for the fact that there is an alarming knocking feeling from the front suspension, and the steering is even more floaty than I would expect it to be. Oh my God. This thing's got so much more torque than what you'd expect. I'm sitting here in this couch, holding this big steering wheel, wielding this boat left and right. This is definitely the sweet spot in terms of American land yachts. It's comfortable, it's big, it's ugly, it's brown, it's wafty, it's floaty, but it has a lot of power and a lot of torque. Again, this driving experience isn't for everybody. Definitely not sure if it's even for me. It's a lot more rough over bumps than I'd expect, given the fact that it's a body-on-frame vehicle. It's basically riding on a Chevy truck chassis. So it's not as comfortable as I'd want, and it handles so badly. It's the worst handling vehicle I've ever driven by a countrywide margin. It is pretty hilarious putting your foot down and lighting up the rear tires away from a set of lights, especially when you pull up next to a brand new Buick Encore and you want to show them what a real Buick is. You can do that. That's how the Buick drives, and I know, no coincidence, I am wearing a flannel today to really slam home the land yacht vibe here. And here's a speed bump. One benefit of the Buick Roadmaster, speed bumps don't exist. They just disappear. They're not there. You drive over them, that was interesting. There's literally no feel. This car is the speed bump final boss. No speed bump can stop me and my LT1 V8. So yeah,